You can file this video under one of the many reasons why Izzy will never ever be a Nintendo brand ambassador. And yes, I know that's a pretty long filing category. Be it my history with emulation or my unrelenting criticism of what I see as really poor business practices by Nintendo, I know my fate is sealed. I will have to actually buy Nintendo games out of my own pocket for the rest of my life. They will never work with me. So Nintendo had a financial Q&A session posted recently, and in it, Nintendo President Shuntaro Furukawa, pretty sure I nailed that one, had something to say about the infamous Joy-Con drift. Now, if you are one of the few Nintendo Switch owners who hasn't been afflicted by Joy-Con drift, let me just say, your luck is going to run out. It's only a matter of time. According to Polygon, Furukawa said the company apologizes for any trouble caused to our customers, noting that Nintendo is continuing to aim to improve its products. This is the first time they addressed it in a more earnest way because their president is actually apologizing for the issue. Up until recently, Nintendo's policy was to quietly repair or to exchange Joy-Cons that developed the issue, which, by the way, has not been fixed, even though this has been known for years at this point. Nobody really knows what causes Joy-Con drift because obviously Nintendo has been kind of pushing this under the rug, so we're left with some theories. Some people think that the sealing around the base of the analog stick, particularly on the left Joy-Con, allows for debris to fall in there, and it prevents the sensor from accurately I cannot pronounce this word! Which prevents the sensor from properly reading the position of the analog stick. Also, the debris can make the controller input commands that you're not actually trying to perform, hence the drift. It'll move by itself. One other theory was developed by enterprising users who disassembled their defective Joy-Cons and found that the sensor seemed to be showing some signs of wear and tear, more so than I guess Nintendo expected when they first designed the product. It could be either of those, it could be a combination of those, or it could be something else that we haven't been able to figure out yet. And again, because Nintendo's not being very transparent with this, we likely will never know what exactly causes it. And the worst thing is they put out 2 revisions since, and this problem is still apparently happening. It's even worse with the Switch Lite because, as you know, the Switch Lite doesn't have detachable Joy-Con, so you have to send the entire unit for repair. If you have a Nintendo Switch and a Pro Controller, like it's my case, if that were to happen to me, I could send my Joy-Con to be repaired by Nintendo, and at least I could still play my games in dock mode. But if you have a Switch Lite, then you're out of luck. This is extremely frustrating because when I was a kid, Nintendo had a reputation for building stuff that was supposed to last. And I know that's the boomerist thing to say, but I feel like they really did build stuff to last back then. I mean, take these bricks right here. One of these guys survived a bomb during the Gulf War. The thing is still functioning to this day. They had to replace the screen, obviously, but it still works. It's on display at the Nintendo New York store. I want to visit that so bad. Now, luckily, I'm one of the few that have not been affected so far by Joy-Con drift. I have some theories as to why that is. I am primarily, as you know, a retro gamer. I play way more 16-bit and PlayStation era games than I play current games. So I don't play on my Switch as much as I play, say, on my modded PSPs or on these thousands of emulation devices I have lying around. So perhaps I just haven't put enough hours into my Nintendo Switch to have this happen to me. The other reason is because I have a lot of Joy-Con, I have a bunch of Joy-Cons and I like to mix and match and change the colors depending on how I'm feeling that day. Also, by the way, I didn't buy a single one of these. These were all gifts. Joy-Cons are a super easy gift to give to somebody who is a Switch fan because this is different colors, right? So you can change the appearance of your Nintendo Switch, and it's extra controllers for you to play with when you have guests over. So it's obviously a great gift, and the people in my life thought so too, so that's why I have a whole bunch of Joy-Cons. Don't worry, I didn't go crazy and bought a bunch that I didn't need. I'm not the reason why you're having trouble finding these things, okay? I just want to say that. It wasn't my choice. I got them as gifts. So I have a bunch of them. I swap them around depending on the game that I'm playing. Like, for some stupid reason, if I'm playing Diablo 3, I like to have the red and black Joy-Cons. I think that red and black go together with Diablo. Whenever I go to Brazil, for instance, I like to represent the homeland colors, so I have my yellow and green Joy-Cons on this thing. So I like to play with them, I like to change them around. So I think the result here is that I never end up using one specific Joy-Con for very long. Probably the Joy-Cons that I use the most were my original black ones. These are the ones I played with the most because for the longest time, that's all I had. And I haven't actually used them in so long because I find this combination kind of boring. Whenever I do have one of the black ones, it's in this layout. Like I mentioned, my Diablo 3 layout, red on the left-hand side here and black on the right. And the right Joy-Con is less affected by Joy-Con drift, so maybe that's why I haven't experienced it yet. And, you know, I play a lot with the Pro Controller too, so maybe that's why it hasn't happened to me yet, but it is a design flaw. It affects, in theory, every single Switch out there. Of course, the way you play with it is going to make it happen sooner or later, but it's inevitable because it's clearly a design flaw. And that's why Nintendo is the target of a class action lawsuit launched last year, and it was updated recently too. The firm that's suing Nintendo is actually actively looking for more Switch users that report the issue, and there's no shortage of them. Honestly, this is just yet an... I hate to trash Nintendo as much as I do here because as you can see behind me and on me, I'm a huge fan of Nintendo. I love their products, I love their games, but they have some practices that, you know, they're disappointing. The issue with the Joy-Con, like when the Switch Lite came out, and then people were like, you know, with the issues that we've had with the Joy-Cons and everything, if they haven't changed the tech inside these things to make it so the Switch Lite isn't affected by this, it's gonna be a big problem because we have to send the whole thing to repair. Now you don't have your Switch for however long it takes for them to fix these things. The fact that they decided to maintain the same design issue, and make no mistake, I guarantee you that this conversation happened at Nintendo headquarters at some point. They had to do the math of how much it would take to recall all of these defective Joy-Cons, right? These time bombs. And they contrasted that with fixing the ones that happened to develop the problem. And one thing to keep in mind too is that Nintendo knows that a lot of these things were given as gifts to children, right? So if a kid is like, Dad, my controller isn't working anymore, you know that there are some parents out there that will just assume the kid broke it and will buy a new one. So I suspect Nintendo did the math, they did the cost assessment of this whole equation, and they thought that replacing every single Joy-Con, right, or issuing refunds or whatever, or redesigning the thing from scratch to prevent it from happening on more recent models would be far more expensive than just fixing the ones that happened to develop the issue. You know that that's what they did, and that's why I can't condone something like this. I say keep your apologies and just fix the problem. You've had, like, what, the Switch is going on 3.5 years at this point. Certainly, at some point, during the quality assurance process or whatever you have in place before you put these things out on store shelves, at some point, somebody must have experienced Joy-Con drift. And you guys decided that the problem is negligible, and obviously it isn't. It reminds me of the Red Ring of Death issue with the Xbox 360. For those who don't know, the original launch 360s, and up until like I think a good 2 years or 3 years after that, they were all susceptible to a problem known as the Red Ring of Death. I forget the specifics. I know it had something to do with the system overheating and something coming basically unplugged in the motherboard. I can't remember the specifics, this has been a long time, but my 360, that happened to it 3 or 4 times. It happened so many times that my brother and I bought it with him, we decided to give up on the 360 because we were tired of sending this thing back. So that's where we stand right now. There's a class action lawsuit that, I'm no lawyer, but considering how frequently this seems to happen, I have a hard time believing Nintendo will be able to win this case. For now, their stance is to just quietly fix the Joy-Cons that people send to them for repairs. They're obviously not going to go into redesigning this thing, or at least they haven't felt the need so far. Maybe that'll change with the outcome of this class action lawsuit, but what do you think? Have you experienced Joy-Con drift? Have you employed any of the fixes that you find online? Were you able to bring it back to life? Did you send it back to Nintendo? Did you end up buying a new one? On the Nintendo Switch subreddit, it's common to see people saying they're down to their 4th Joy-Con because they've had that issue so many times. Now, I have to assume that they play on the Switch way more than I do, and that's probably very likely considering that my most played game on the Switch is Stardew Valley, and I have about 100 hours on it. And I know that some of you probably have 4 times that just on Smash Brothers alone. So maybe I'm just not playing that much on my Switch. Plus, you know, the pandemic going on, I'm not going out as much, so my Switch isn't going out as much. So this guy has been seeing a lot of use. Maybe that's why it hasn't happened to me yet. But this is something that I completely forgot to touch on, and it only occurred to me when I was editing the video. After Furukawa said that they were continuing to aim to improve their products, he also added, but as the Joy-Con is the subject of a class action lawsuit in the United States and this is still a pending issue, we would like to refrain from responding about any specific actions. And this just, I find this infuriating because the class action lawsuit is from 2019. They had about 2 years to fix the issue, and instead they were pretty quiet about it. Now that there's a lawsuit, their excuse is that they can't really talk about any specific actions because of the lawsuit, which is far more recent than the problem has existed. That just upsets me. But let me know how you feel in the comments down below. As always, follow me on social media. I'm very active on both Twitter and Instagram. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You know, the stuff that we have to say in every one of these videos that you know by now you're supposed to do, but you know, call to action and all. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That helps me out so very much. And that's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy and I'm done.